בעזרת השם, בזכות הצדיק רבי משה פינטו, בזכות כל הצדיקים, הקדוש ברוך הוא bless the entire קהילה והentire קהל, וברכה והצלחה, וסייעתא דשמיא גדולה, may בעזרת השם this week, today, every moment of our life, be בעזרת השם another step towards a personal redemption and a redemption בעזרת השם for all כלל עם ישראל, אמן כן רצון. You know, Rabbi, this morning, we were thinking about this idea of Avraham Avinu alav shalom. Baruch Hashem, it was a very rainy day, so it had us thinking a little bit of the period of time that we're in, and we came up with a little question. We know, Rabbi, that Avraham Avinu alav shalom this week is being introduced in the Torah, and Avraham Avinu alav shalom holds a position within mankind which is very unique, where the Zohar HaKadosh calls Avraham Avinu alav shalom Adam. And this is something that even alluded in the Tehillim in multiple places, that Avraham is considered to be Adam. Why is that? Because the Zohar HaKadosh says that Avraham Avinu alav shalom was a ish hamushlam. He was the perfect man. He was the example of what man was supposed to be like when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. To the point where it says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was creating Adam, all the angels, they came and they said, you're creating a creation that will never be perfect. It's a creation that will always have flaws. Zohar HaKadosh says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought Avraham Avinu alav shalom. And he said, this man, this Adam, is the sign, is the model that to prove to all the world that a man could be perfect. Now what's very interesting about Avraham, and we see he holds two very, very different polar opposite attributes. On one side we see him, Isha Nava, very, very humble man, a very, very simple man. Isha Chesed, a man of kindness. He's a man that even he witnessed upon himself. He said, Afar ani, I am like dust before you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A very quiet person, a very shy person, a very humble person. And on the other side, you see a man with great strength, with great gvura. He takes a stick, he breaks the statues of his father, he takes his son, and he has the audacity to do the Akedah. It's two complete opposite tchunot, two complete opposite attributes. And clearly these two opposite attributes was something very, very special. Being that not only that Avraham Avinu alav shalom was chosen to be the most important man, but being that Avraham Avinu alav shalom got to work on repairing the damage that was caused by the two previous generations. Dor HaMabul, the generation of the Mabul, the generation of the flood, and the generation of what? Of the Palaga, the generation where they wanted to build a tower to go fight HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the question that we had is, what was Avraham Avinu alav shalom's job in fixing the sins of both of these different generations? So we thought of a beautiful Rabbi teaching that the Zohar HaKadosh brings about in the book of Bereshit. It's actually something that we mentioned on Friday night 2 weeks ago. And that is the idea that on the second day of creation, the Torah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu split. Yipayavdi la'elokim ben hamayim ha'elyonim la'mayim ha'tachtonim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu split and separated between the upper water and the lower water. Many of Chazal go into detail of trying to understand what is the upper water and what is the lower water. And Chazal come up with a beautiful teaching. Zohar HaKadosh says that the upper water represents life of Kedusha, a form of life, whereas we know water always represents a form of living, of life, of sustenance. Upper water represents the spiritual Kedusha, the spiritual life, the ability to live within a spiritual world with a spiritual body, and that Kedusha, the Zohar HaKadosh says, has ga'ava, has pride, has strength, doesn't want to come down to the world, looks at the bottom world as shameful, as dirty, as disgusting. And that's even, we can see with the Nishamot, where many places we hear in the Gemara, in the Mishnayot, and in the stories of Tzadikim, where Nishamot, when they're about to come down to the world, they're upset, they put a fit. Why? Because they say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to send me down to this dirty world? They don't want to come down. The angels fought with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to not send the Torah down. The world above holds a Kedusha, holds a life force, which is with strength, with gava, with a lot of pride within it. On the opposite side, the bottom water, mayim ha'tachtonim, the lower water, represents our water, our form of life. And we know about that water, like mentioned in many teachings, has a very, very, very humble way of conducting itself. In what manner? When you put water in a place, the first thing that it does, it dives to the deepest place of that area. You take a cup, you fill it with water, with rocks, you put some water, the water will go to the lowest point. The water of this world, mayim ha'tachtonim, the lower water, represents a very, very humble existence of life. A very simple existence of life. a life with humility, with its head down. All the animals that exist in this world, they're not creations that walk with their head up. They're creations that walk with their head down, or in simple words, a world that exists with what? With humility. Based on this teaching, we came up with a beautiful little thought. And maybe this can really explain the last two generations that failed so miserably with conducting themselves with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and within the world. And that is what? After the sin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Adam, threw him from Gan Eden, dropped into the world, and Adam was full of busha, he was full of shame. He was full of embarrassment. He was naked. He felt like he had nothing left in this world. And this came after a time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a clear difference between the upper water, which is pride, and the lower water, which is humility. So Adam HaRishon, when he was in this world, he was full of what? Of nothingness. He looked at himself and he said, I will never be able to rise. I was thrown to the simple world. I was thrown to the bottom world. I was thrown to the dirty world, to this world, the physical world. Adam HaRishon looked at himself from a very, very low position. He failed his father, he failed HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he failed his family, he failed his world, he failed all his future generations to come. Adam HaRishon at that point was full of embarrassment. And this can really explain the next few generations that come. We know that all the generations that follow Adam HaRishon are generations that they sin with very, very petty sins. They sinned with Gilu Arayot, improper relations. They sinned with sins that were very, very, very dirty. Or like what Rabbi Nachman says, they are sins that are pushed by shame, by embarrassment, by sadness. Not sins that a person wants to do at a place of pride. A person with pride, with a position, with a statue, is not going to go and do a Gilu Arayot and do improper relations with animals, with siblings, with very, very low things. Rabbi Nachman says, what caused the sins of the generation of Noach was what? It was humility. It was embarrassment. It was the feeling of lowness. And maybe we can say that this derived from the aspect that they lived in the world where the bottom water is full of shame, full of embarrassment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw this. He said, to a certain extent, I don't blame the generation of Noach so much, because the bottom line is, I separated between the life with gava, life with pride, life with purpose, and the bottom world, which is the lower waters, which is shameful and embarrassment. It's only obvious that they went down that path of shameful sins. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu had an idea. And that's what the Midrash says. That when HaKadosh Baruch Hu started to bring the Mabul, it wasn't supposed to be a Mabul. It wasn't supposed to be a flood. It was actually supposed to be Gishmei Bracha, water that fell from the sky, which was a Beracha, to the point where even some Mefarshim say that it was the Torah. That Hashem intended to bring down the Torah in the generation of Noach, or in simple words, to bring the water from above down to the world. Maybe we can say this was HaKadosh Baruch Hu's way of attempting to install pride back in man. Attempting to install kavod back in man. Whereas we know, Rabotai, the water from above represents what? Life with strength. Life with pride. So Hashem came along and he said, okay, I have to now bring it back to the world. So he started to bring down to the world water from above, water from the sky. We know that the generation of Noach, they didn't take that symbol, that sign of doing tshuva. They didn't fix themselves. So that water that came from above, which represents gava, ended up destroying them. One generation later, Hashem brought down water from above, which was gava. What did the next generation do? They said, we're not simple creations. We're powerful creations. They took that water from above, which was supposed to install a little bit gava with them, to understand that they could grow, that they could be better, that they could ascend once again. And they said, we're going to build a building tall enough to fight a war with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They took that gava that Hashem brought down to the world, and they brought it to the next step. And we all know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to them to wipe them out. And here comes a man named Avraham Avinu Alav Hashalom that holds the gift of what? That holds the gift of being able to hold on to the waters from below and the waters from above. And what attribute? We see on one side, Avraham Avinu Alav Hashalom looks at HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am afal. I am dirt to you. I am not even a creation to you. I am nothing to you. The most humility that can possibly exist. But on the other side, knowing that Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom put himself as the slave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he walked with pride that he had the ability to represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we see Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom fights wars, wins kings, does things that are the exact opposite of anava, of humility, of busha, and of kindness. Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom was the perfect man because he was able to hold on one side, the humility to walk and conduct ourselves in this world with our head down, but hold the greatest pride and the greatest ga'ava and the greatest koach that we have a Kadosh Baruch Hu on our side. And I think about that as a big lesson for all of us. In everything in our life, whether it's Shalom Bayit, we have to keep our head down, whether it's in our work, we have to keep our head down. But it does not mean that our heads should be down throughout all aspects of our life. Not at all. We will fail miserably if we will, God forbid, keep our head down in every aspect. The way to success is working with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, doing our avodah with anava, but fighting in this world and having the determination to succeed on the simple fact that Hashem is by our side. So Be'ezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us all B'chal Netzlacha and Siyata Dishmaya, and we all come to a place, Be'ezrat Hashem, of real ga'ava, of kedusha, ben kedusha. Yom Tov Mevorach Be'ezrat Hashem.